Cal Bennett had spent most of his life under the wide sky of the Arizona Territory, where the sun rose like melted gold, and the evenings cooled the world just enough to make a tired cowboy feel alive again. People who knew him described him as quiet, steady, and careful with words. He was the kind of man who listened more than he talked, and believed every problem had a patient solution if a person took the time to think before speaking. For the last 3 weeks, he had been working with a prospector named Willis Gray. Willis was a restless man who changed plans every few minutes. But Cal had agreed to help him move supplies, guide his mule team, and haul ore samples across long stretches of dry land. Willis had promised good payment, half in silver, half in coin. It sounded fair enough, and Cal trusted the promise, the way cowboys usually trusted such deals. With cautious hope and a quiet prayer that the other man meant what he said. But when they returned to the trading post after the long job, it became clear that Willis did not have the money he'd talked about. He patted his pockets, checked his vest, and sighed dramatically as if the coins might magically appear if he looked disappointed enough. Cal stood beside the hitching post with his hands resting lightly on his belt. "If you don't have the coin," he said calmly, "you should have told me before we started." Willis avoided his eyes. "Now, Cal, don't get all stiff on me. I've got something better than coin." Cal doubted that. There weren't many things better than coin in that part of the territory, especially when a man needed supplies for the next month. Still, he waited without snapping. That was his way, steady patience, even when the situation felt strange. Willis motioned toward the back of an old wagon. "Got someone you might find useful. A young Apache girl. Smart as they come. Speaks a bit of English, too." Cal felt his stomach tighten. He didn't like the sound of that. He didn't like the idea of any person being spoken of like property. He stepped toward the wagon slowly. Not because he was frightened, but because he wanted to understand what kind of situation this was turning into. There, sitting quietly with her hands folded in her lap, was a young woman. Her long dark hair was braided neatly. Her clothes were dusty but clean. She looked up at Cal with calm, steady eyes that held dignity even in a place that did not honor it. She was not afraid of him, but she watched him carefully, as if measuring the truth in his face. Willis spoke quickly, as though trying to finish the matter before Cal could argue. "Picked her up from a trader. Man said she'd been passed along after being taken from her people. Nothing harmful. Just the usual business." Cal's jaw tightened, but he kept his tone even. "A person isn't something to hand over, because you owe a debt." Willis waved a hand. "I'm not saying she is. But I don't have anything else to give you. And she's better off with someone decent. Better off riding with you than sitting in the back of a wagon." "I'm not could." Tron plied. Why? "I'm not saying she is." For a moment, Cal didn't say anything. He looked again at the young woman. She sat straight, quiet, her expression unreadable. He didn't know her name, her story, or what she had been through before ending up here. But one thing he did know, and he knew it deep in his bones, was that she did not belong in Willis's hands, or any other man's who treated her as something to trade. Cal spoke slowly, choosing every word. The young woman met his eyes. "Nashdi," she said softly. Her voice was gentle, but strong. Cal nodded once. "I'm Cal Bennett." She studied him for a long second. Something in those dark eyes showed she understood that he wasn't part of the situation by choice. Cal turned back to Willis. "You're not paying me with a person." "That's not happening." Willis shrugged helplessly. "Then I owe you a debt I can't pay. Look, Cal, if you don't take her, someone else will. Someone worse. You know how folks around here think." Cal did know. Too many people in the territory looked at indigenous people with fear or anger, without trying to understand them. He had seen how quickly a misunderstanding could turn into trouble. And if Nashdit stayed with Willis or was traded again, there was no telling where she would end up. Cal let out a slow breath. He didn't like the idea of taking her as payment. But he could take responsibility for her, keep her safe, treat her like a person, and find a way to return her to her community. That wasn't much. But it was something. And something was better than letting Willis hand her off to someone careless or cruel. "All right," Cal said quietly. "She rides with me, but not because she's payment, because she deserves better." Willis grinned, grateful for the solution, even though it was not much of a solution at all. "Now that's settled," he said. "You're a good man, Cal. Always knew you were." Cal didn't answer. He helped Nashdi down from the wagon with a gentle hand, careful not to startle her. She stepped lightly onto the ground, her posture graceful, her expression calm. She carried herself in a way Cal hadn't expected. There was strength there, quiet and composed. Cal saddled his horse, a patient bay mare named Juniper, then prepared a second mount for Nashdi. When he offered her the reins, she took them with steady fingers. "You ride?" Cal asked softly. She nodded. "Yes." They left the trading post together, riding side by side. Willis waved brightly behind them, but Cal didn't look back. He was thinking about the road ahead stretching toward the pink horizon and what he would do next. The desert afternoon wrapped around them like warm breath. Dust rose gently from under the horses' hooves. The wind carried the soft scent of sage, drifting past in lazy waves. For a long time, neither of them spoke. Cal didn't want to push her, and Nashdit seemed to prefer the quiet. Finally, when they were a few miles from the post, she asked, "Why did you take me?" Cal hesitated for a moment, searching for the right words. "Because you shouldn't be traded, and I couldn't leave you with him." She studied his face again, as if confirming his honesty. Her gaze was calm, not frightened. She seemed older in spirit than her years. "You do not fear me?" she asked. "No," Cal said simply. "I don't." Her lips curved in a small, thoughtful smile, not quite happiness, but something lighter than before. Comfort, maybe. Or relief. The sun dipped lower, turning the desert into copper and soft red. Cal guided their horses toward a natural rock shelter. He knew a safe place to camp for the night. As they rode, Cal kept stealing small glances at her. She did not act like someone who had been carried from place to place without choice. She sat tall in the saddle, guiding the horse with calm confidence, watching the land with careful eyes. She seemed alert, but not afraid. Her strength showed not in loudness or demands, but in quiet presence. He realized something then. She wasn't just surviving. She was observing, thinking, deciding. She was choosing how to move through the world, even when others tried to choose for her. When they finally stopped for the evening, Cal made sure she had space to sit or walk where she wished. He shared food evenly, dried fruit, bread, and cooled water, without making her feel like she owed him anything. After a while, Nashdid broke the silence. "You do not ask many questions. I figure you'll tell me what you want me to know," he replied softly. She nodded, pleased by the answer. Then she looked toward the shadowed mountains in the distance. "My people are searching for me." Cal listened carefully. "Then we'll find a way to get you back to them." Nashdi glanced at him again. There was something new behind her eyes. Something like trust beginning to form. Small, but real. The stars began to appear, one by one, soft as pinpricks in the dark blue sky. The desert night was cool and peaceful, wrapping around them like a blanket that belonged to no one but the land itself. Cal lay back on his bedroll, arms folded behind his head. Nashdi sat cross-legged near the small fire, watching the sparks rise and fade. Neither of them knew what the coming days would bring. But in that quiet moment, under the stars, something shifted between them. Not ownership, not obligation, but a gentle understanding. For the first time since they met, Nashdi spoke with a relaxed tone. "Cal Bennett," she said softly, You are different from other men. Cal smiled faintly in the dark. I hope that's a good thing. It is, she replied, and the night settled peacefully around them. The sun rose slowly over the desert the next morning, painting the sky with soft orange light. Cal Bennett woke early, as he always did, stretching his arms and feeling the cool morning air against his skin. The fire had burned down to soft gray ash during the night, and Juniper, his horse, stood nearby nibbling at a patch of dry grass. Nashdit was already awake. She sat quietly on a flat rock, watching the sunrise, as if she were listening to something only she could hear. The soft light touched her face, making her expression look peaceful and thoughtful at the same time. Cal walked over and offered her a small smile. Morning. She looked at him and returned a polite nod. They shared a simple breakfast, dried peaches, a little bread, and clean water. Cal made sure to give her enough, without making her feel like she was supposed to thank him for every bite. He treated her not like a guest, not like a burden, but like a person who deserved the same respect as anyone else traveling the open land. As they packed up, Nashdi watched him closely, noticing how he tied his saddlebags with care, how he adjusted each strap so it wouldn't rub the horse's skin. He moved with quiet skill, the kind of skill built not from pride, but from long years of steady work. You are gentle with your horse, she said as she mounted her own. Cal glanced at Juniper, then back at Nashdi. Animals deserve kindness. They trust us without asking for much. She nodded, understanding more than he expected. In my family, we say the land watches how people treat the creatures who share it. Cal liked that thought. It fit with the kind of life he believed in, even if he didn't say such things out loud. They rode side by side again, heading toward the distant hills where Cal believed they could find a safer path. The air was warm, but pleasant, and the morning wind carried the sweet smell of sagebrush. For long stretches they traveled in comfortable silence, listening to the sounds of the world, birds calling, horses breathing, the wind brushing across the sand. At one point Nashdi asked, "Why do you travel alone? You have no family with you." Cal took a moment to think before answering. Family's back in Texas. I left home a long time ago to find my own way. Just ended up liking the quiet out here. She studied him, her eyes thoughtful. Mostly, he said with a faint smile. And you are not lonely? He shrugged lightly. Sometimes. But I've got the sky, the land, and Juniper. They keep me company. After a pause, he added gently, "What about you? Do you have family?" Her gaze drifted toward the mountains again. "Yes. My father is an important man in our community. My mother, my aunties, my brothers, they are strong, and they care for one another." Cal listened quietly. "You must miss them." "I do," she replied softly. "Every day." There was no anger in her voice, no complaint, just a quiet truth spoken from the heart. They continued riding until midday, when the sun grew stronger. Cal searched the land ahead and pointed toward a cluster of tall rocks forming a natural shade. "We'll rest there for a bit. Let the horses drink and cool down." Nashdi followed him without hesitation. When they reached the shady spot, Cal loosened the saddles and let the horses drink from a small stream trickling between stones. The air inside the sheltered space felt cooler, giving the world a quiet, peaceful tone. Nashdi knelt near the water, cupping her hands to drink. As she did, she watched the ripples move outward, as if listening to a secret message carried by the flow. "You know the land well," she said after a moment. Cal chuckled. "I've ridden around these parts for a while. You learn where the safe places are." She lifted her eyes to him. "Not only that, you watch the colors in the hills. You notice the wind. You listen for sounds before they reach you. That is not just knowing the land. That is respecting it." Cal felt a soft warmth in his chest at her words. It meant something that she saw him that way. After they rested, they continued onward. The sky changed into a deeper blue, and small clouds drifted across it like slow-moving ships. The land widened in every direction, reminding both travelers how big the world was and how small they seemed in comparison. But even the quietest day on the trail brought unexpected moments. As they rounded a bend near a stretch of tall grass, Cal suddenly noticed a group of riders in the distance, too far to make out clearly, but close enough to see their shapes against the horizon. They were moving in the same general direction. Nashtia noticed them as well. "Do you know them?" "No," Cal said calmly. "But we'll keep our distance. Just travelers, most likely." She seemed reassured by his steady tone. There was nothing threatening about the riders, only the simple truth that meeting strangers on the open land could bring uncertainty. So Cal changed their course slightly, guiding them toward a path with more cover. Nashdit watched him and said softly, "Thank you." "For what?" "For not letting worry turn into fear. Many would panic." Cal shook his head with a light smile. "Fear doesn't help anybody. Not much good comes from running without a reason." Her eyes softened. She seemed to appreciate the grounded way he saw things. Later that afternoon, they came across a small thicket where a few desert berries grew. Nashdi recognized them and showed Cal which were safe to eat. She picked a few, handing one to him with a tiny smile. "You trust me to give you something?" she teased lightly. Cal laughed, the sound warm and genuine. "I trust your knowledge of plants more than mine." The moment felt easy and natural, as if they had known each other longer than just a day and a half. It was the kind of comfortable moment that made a journey feel less like a duty and more like shared company. As they rode on, the land began to shift. Large boulders rose like sleeping giants, and the path narrowed between them. A gentle breeze moved through, carrying the sound of distant birds. Nashdit seemed more relaxed, more open, as though something familiar in the land comforted her. At one point, she asked quietly, "If you find my family, will you let me go with them? Or will you ask something in return?" Cal looked at her with surprise. "I won't ask for anything. I won't ask for anything. But the man who gave me to you," he said, "I was payment." "You aren't payment," Cal said firmly but gently. "You're a person, and I'm just trying to do the right thing." She looked at him for a long moment, her eyes softening with something like gratitude. "You are different, Cal Bennett." He didn't answer right away. He didn't need to. The silence between them was warm and steady, like a small fire on a cold night. In the late afternoon, they reached a wide open plain where the grass shimmered like small golden waves. They let the horses trot slowly across it. The air felt gentle, almost soft, carrying the smell of earth warmed by sunlight. Then Nashdi spoke again, her voice quiet but sure. "My people live beyond those mountains." She pointed to a range in the distance. "We'll head that way," Cal said. "You do not worry what they will think of you?" she asked. "I figure the truth speaks for itself," he replied simply. "And you can tell it better than I can." She smiled thoughtfully, as though storing his words in her memory. As evening approached, they reached a small ridge overlooking a valley. The colors in the sky blended into soft purples and rosy pinks. Cal stopped the horses and pointed ahead. "We'll make camp down there. There's water and flat ground." The valley was quiet and inviting, touched by the peacefulness that only evening could bring. Once they set up camp, Cal built a small fire again. The soft crackle of wood filled the quiet space between them. Nashdit sat near the fire, her eyes reflecting the flickering glow. "No," Cal answered. "Are you afraid of meeting them again?" She shook her head. "No. I look forward to it. But I wonder how they will see me after being away." Cal looked at her with calm understanding. "Families don't stop caring because of time. They'll be glad you're safe." Her shoulders relaxed slightly, and she seemed comforted by the thought. The night grew darker, stars blooming across the sky like tiny silver flowers. The air was cool, and a soft breeze rustled the grass. Before lying down for the night, Nashdi turned toward him. "Cal Bennett, thank you for this journey. For treating me kindly." He gave her a gentle smile. "It's not kindness. It's just respect." Her expression brightened with a quiet peace, as if those simple words had eased something heavy in her heart. And in the soft glow of the night, under the shelter of the stars, the bond between them grew stronger, not out of need, not out of debt, but out of shared understanding, steady trust, and the quiet belief that goodness still existed in the wide, unpredictable world. The next morning greeted them with soft golden light spreading across the sky. Cal packed their things neatly while Nashdi braided her hair with calm, careful movements. Both felt a sense of quiet purpose as they prepared to continue their journey toward the mountains where her people lived. By now, they had fallen into a natural rhythm. Cal saddling the horses, Nashdi gathering small, useful plants, or checking the path ahead. They spoke with ease, shared thoughts without pressure, and trusted one another without needing many words. As they mounted their horses and began riding toward the rising hills, Nashdi felt a flutter in her chest. It wasn't fear. It was something deeper, something that grew stronger the closer she came to the land she had been away from for so long. Cal noticed her silence and asked softly, "You all right?" She nodded. "Yes. I'm thinking about my family." "You miss them a lot," Cal said gently. Nashdi looked ahead at the distant mountains. "Yes. But I also wonder how they will see me now. After everything." Cal gave her a steady look. "They'll see you the same way your family always sees you, as someone they love." Cal gave her. She took a deep breath, letting his words settle into her heart. They rode for a long time in peaceful silence, listening to the soft sound of hooves on dry earth and the whisper of the wind. The land began to change as they approached a canyon. The rocks grew taller, rising like ancient guardians on each side. Narrow shadows stretched across the path. Birds circled overhead, their wings gliding on warm currents of air. Nashdi looked around with a sense of familiarity. Cal felt a surge of hope. They might truly be close. They entered the canyon slowly, allowing the horses to move at a gentle pace. The air felt cooler here, shaded by towering cliffs. A soft echo hung in the space, as if the canyon remembered every footstep that had ever passed through it. Cal watched Nashdi closely. Her eyes moved with purpose, scanning the rocks, the ground, the formations around them. She seemed to recognize each bend in the path, each ridge, each crack in the stone. "We must be close," Cal said. "Yes," Nashdi replied calmly. "My people use this place for travel. It is safe, but guarded." "Guarded?" Cal repeated carefully. She nodded. "Scouts may be watching us even now, but they will not show themselves until they are sure." Cal's posture remained relaxed. "Then we'll keep going. No need to rush." They continued deeper into the canyon, its walls rising higher and the path narrowing. A soft wind brushed past them, carrying the scent of juniper and warm stone. Suddenly Nashdi lifted her hand, signaling Cal to stop. He guided Juniper to a halt. "No," she said softly. "Just—" Cal scanned the rocks around them. At first, he saw nothing unusual. Then, slowly, shapes began to appear from between ridges and ledges, figures blending so naturally with the land that he wondered how he hadn't seen them before. Men and women stood silently, watching. Their expressions were calm but serious. They held no weapons in hand, but their stance showed readiness and confidence. They were not there to frighten, only to observe and protect. Cal sat quietly on his horse, making no sudden moves. "Your people?" he asked under his breath. "Yes," Nashdi whispered. "My people." One figure stepped forward. He was older, with sharp eyes and a strong presence. His braids were tied neatly, and his clothing held the patterns of someone respected and experienced. When Nashdii saw him, a tremble of recognition moved through her. She swung down from her horse gracefully and walked toward him. Cal stayed back, giving her space. He felt a mixture of relief and nervousness, not for himself, but for how she might be welcomed back. The older man's expression softened the moment he truly saw her. His eyes widened with disbelief, then filled with emotion, deep, powerful, and almost overwhelming. "Nashdii," he whispered. She bowed her head respectfully. "Uncle," she replied softly. Her uncle placed a steady hand over his heart, the gesture filled with silent gratitude. Others around them watched with quiet awe. News of her return spread among them like sunlight touching morning frost. Cal remained still, unsure whether to approach or wait. He didn't want to disrespect their space. He waited patiently for some sign. Nashdid turned and motioned for him to come forward. Cal guided his horse slowly, stopping a few steps away. "This is Cal Bennett," she said clearly. Her uncle studied Cal closely. His eyes held wisdom and years of experience. Cal felt the weight of that gaze, but stayed calm. "You brought her safely?" the uncle asked. "Yes," Cal answered. "She deserved to be home. I just helped her get here." The uncle nodded slowly. "You speak with honesty." A few of the younger scouts exchanged curious glances. It was clear they were surprised, perhaps even impressed, that Nashdid had returned with someone who spoke so gently and respectfully. Her uncle turned back to her. "Your father will want to see you. He believed you were gone. He prayed every day for your safety." Nashdi's eyes softened at the mention of her father. "I am ready to see him." So the group led them deeper into the canyon, following a winding path that opened into a wide valley filled with green grass, soft breezes, and the smell of fresh earth. Children played near a stream, elders sat weaving baskets, and the sound of peaceful life filled the air. When the people noticed Nashdi, everything seemed to pause for a moment. A soft murmur rose, filled with surprise and joy. Several women hurried toward her with tears in their eyes, embracing her gently and speaking in warm, loving tones. Cal watched from a short distance, feeling a strange mix of relief and quiet pride. He had wanted this moment for her from the beginning. Then a tall, dignified man stepped forward, the chief. His face was calm, but marked with deep emotion. He walked slowly, each step carrying years of hope and worry. "Father," Nashdid said, her voice trembling slightly. The chief touched her shoulders, gazing at her as if making sure she was truly there. Then he pulled her into a gentle, heartfelt embrace. Cal felt something warm swell in his chest at the sight. It wasn't his family, but the joy felt universal, like something the whole world could understand. When the chief finally looked up, his eyes fell on Cal. "You brought my daughter home," he said. His voice was strong, but grateful. Cal dipped his head respectfully. "She showed the strength. I only rode beside her." "Dan." The chief approached him with deliberate steps. Cal didn't move, letting the moment unfold naturally. "You are not one of my people," the chief said gently, "but you acted with a good heart." "I just did what felt right," Cal replied. The chief nodded, seeing the truth in him. "Then this land welcomes you." Nashdit stepped to Cal's side. Her expression held quiet pride. "I told them you were different," she said softly. Cal felt a small smile form at the edge of his lips. "Hope that was a good thing." "It was," she said. The chief placed a hand over his heart, a gesture of deep respect. "You will stay with us tonight as our guest. You honored my daughter's dignity. For that, we honor you." Cal didn't know what to say. The warmth in their welcome touched him more deeply than he expected. That evening, as the sun set behind the mountains, the community gathered around a gentle fire. Children laughed, elders shared stories, and a peaceful warmth filled the air. Nashdid sat beside her family, finally home. Cal sat nearby, welcomed not as a stranger, but as someone trusted. In the soft glow of the firelight, Nashdi looked at him with quiet gratitude. Their eyes met, and in that silent moment, everything was understood. Without needing a single word, their journey had brought them to this place. But something deeper had grown along the way. A bond built not on need or chance, but on shared kindness, respect, and the simple truth that two people could find trust in a world where trust was not always easy to give. Night settled over the valley with a quiet softness, wrapping everything in calm, peaceful air. Cal sat beside the small fire the Apache community had built in his honor. Around him, people talked with warm voices, sharing stories and laughter that blended smoothly with the gentle rustling of the nearby stream. Nashdi was surrounded by her family, her mother brushing her hair with loving hands, her father sitting proudly beside her, listening to her speak about her long journey. Every so often, she looked toward Cal and offered him a soft smile, a silent way of saying, "Thank you. I haven't forgotten you." Cal felt grateful to be there, but also aware that this was her world, not his. He was a traveler, passing through a place filled with deep connections, history, and family. It made him feel both honored and humble. After the meal, the chief approached Cal and sat beside him. The firelight softened his features, showing the wisdom in his eyes. "You have given my family a gift that cannot be measured," the chief said quietly. Cal bowed his head respectfully. "I just wanted to do what was right." The chief studied him for a moment. "Many people say that, but few live it the way you did." Cal didn't quite know how to respond. Compliments always made him a little shy. "Your daughter is strong," he said. "She made the journey easy. She has a good heart." The chief's eyes softened with pride. "She always has." For a moment, they both watched Nashdit, laughing with a group of children who were showing her new beadwork designs. The fire danced across her face, making her look peaceful and bright. "She has spoken much about you," the chief said. Cal glanced at him, surprised. "All good, I hope." A hint of a smile touched the chief's lips. "Good and honest. She says you treated her with respect from the moment you met, that you offered help without wanting anything in return." Cal looked into the fire, letting the warmth touch his face. "It was the least I could do." The chief leaned forward slightly. "Because of that, our whole community welcomes you. You have a place here tonight. Food, rest, and safety." Cal nodded with quiet gratitude. "Thank you." Quote. The chief hesitated as if weighing his next words. "There is more." He lifted a beautifully woven blanket, embroidered with symbols of their people. "I wish to give you a gift, a sign of our gratitude." Cal took the blanket gently. The fabric felt soft yet strong, each stitch made with care. "This means a lot," he said sincerely. The chief placed a hand over his heart, a gesture Cal had come to understand as deep respect. "You returned, my daughter. That is something a father never forgets." Throughout the evening, Cal spoke with several members of the community. Some asked about his travels, others about the horses he cared for, and some simply thanked him for bringing Nashdid home safely. Their kindness warmed him more than the fire ever could. When the stars filled the sky, Nashdid finally stepped away from her family and walked toward him. She moved gracefully, her smile bright in the firelight. "Are you comfortable?" she asked softly. "Very," Cal replied. "Your people are welcoming." "They can be cautious," she admitted. "But once they trust someone, that trust is strong." Cal nodded. "I've felt that." She sat beside him, not too close, but close enough that he could feel the warmth of her presence. They watched the fire together in comfortable silence, until Nashdi spoke again. "There is something I want to tell you," she said gently. "When I was separated from my family, I was afraid I might never see them again. But meeting you gave me hope. Your kindness reminded me that the world still held good people." Cal felt a quiet emotion rise in his chest. I'm glad I could help you. She turned to him fully. You did more than help. You treated me like a person, not an object, not a burden. I will always remember that. See, Cal met her gaze. I'm glad you're home. You deserve to be with your family. A soft sadness touched her expression. I will miss our journey together. Cal cleared his throat gently. I'll miss it too. They sat that way until the moon rose high, its soft glow stretching across the valley like a silver path. Eventually, Nashdi's father called her over, and she left with a respectful nod to Cal. That night, Cal slept peacefully in the guest lodge, wrapped in the woven blanket the chief had given him. The land felt safe, the air cool and calm, and for the first time in many days, he felt fully at ease. The next morning, Cal woke early as he always did. The sky was still pale, touched with gentle pink. Birds chirped from the trees, and the valley stirred softly with the sounds of morning. He prepared his horse quietly, tightening the saddle straps and checking the water pack. He wasn't sure how long he would stay, but he knew the journey would eventually continue. A cowboy like him was used to moving on when the time was right. As he tightened the last strap, he heard soft footsteps behind him. You're leaving, Nashdi said gently. Cal turned to face her. Not this moment, but soon. I don't want to overstay. She stepped closer, her eyes searching his face. You could stay longer if you wish. He smiled. Your people need time with you. And well, I'm used to the open trail. She nodded slowly. I understand. But I want you to know something before you go. Of course. Nashdi took a deep breath. You changed my path. Not just by bringing me home, but by showing me that kindness can come from unexpected places. That trust can grow, even when the world feels uncertain. Cal held her gaze with quiet respect. You showed me something too. What is that? That strength comes in many forms, he said. Sometimes it's loud. Sometimes it's quiet. But yours, it was steady. It helped guide us both. A warm, gentle smile touched her face. Thank you. They walked together toward the center of the village where the chief waited. He greeted Cal with a calm expression and offered him a final blessing for safe travels. You will always have a place here, the chief said. If your path ever brings you back, you are welcome. Cal placed a hand over his heart, honoring the gesture. Thank you. I'll carry that with me. Nashdid walked with him to the edge of the valley, where the path opened into the canyon. The morning light touched the canyon walls, making them glow with soft gold. This is where our journey changes, she said quietly. Cal nodded. Different paths, maybe, but good memories. She looked up at him, her eyes thoughtful and warm. If the land allows it, our paths may cross again. Cal nodded gently. I hope they do. For a long moment, they simply stood together, listening to the morning breeze. Finally, Nashdi stepped back. Go with peace. Cal Bennett. And you too, Nashdit, he said softly. He mounted Juniper, turning her slowly toward the open land. As he began to ride away, he looked back. Nashdit stood tall at the entrance of the canyon, the rising sun behind her, her braid gently swaying in the breeze. She raised her hand in a calm, steady gesture of farewell. Cal lifted his hand in return. Then the canyon curves slowly hid her from view. As he rode across the open plain, Cal felt a deep sense of peace settle inside him. He had walked into an unexpected situation and walked out of it having done something good, something meaningful. He carried the woven blanket across his saddle, its patterns bright under the sun. But more than that, he carried the memory of a journey shared with someone brave and wise. A journey that changed him in quiet ways he would think about for many miles to come. And somewhere behind him, in the heart of the valley, Nashdit stood with her family. Safe, strong, and home. At last. Their paths had separated for now, but both knew that the world was wide and full of surprises. And in that wide world, kindness always had a way of meeting itself again.